Welcome back to our Celebrating Pride podcast. This series explores experiences, stories, and hot topics related to pride in healthcare in a bite-sized format, which was recorded with our panel of speakers earlier in 2023. We hope you enjoy it. This is the third episode of the series, and we will build further on episode 2 and explore our responsibility to ask questions and not be afraid to do so, alongside the impact of technology on communities.
Well, so I was just going to come back. Robbie mentioned technology again, and you'd asked some questions about technology earlier as well. And I just had some further thoughts, James, because I think technology, we often see it as a positive, and I think it is, and it allows people who wouldn't have previously found each other to find each other and form communities. So I think it's quite good for these. I'm not sure whether the terminology, but the more less encountered, kind of identities, people can find each other. But there's also another side, and I guess for those people kind of outside the community, people can be quite mean on technology as well. People with views that are harmful to people, LGBTQIA, community can also find each other, and group together. So there's a kind of there's a darker side to technology as well. It's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Like many, pieces of knowledge or technology. I was also going to acknowledge, and people within the community might be aware of this as well, I'm sure they are, actually within online communities of queer people, if we use that as maybe a term to encompass a lot of these identities, people can be very mean to each other within that, as well, in a way that I don't think people were when the majority of mixing in the community was. I'm seeing a lot of nods here in the background. People can be so mean and so excluding of people, of identities that are different to theirs or that they don't like. And because it's online, I think people feel a little bit faceless about it, and they do all sorts of things. So I just wanted to acknowledge that technology is really, really mixed. And I think if cisgendered heterosexual people struggle sometimes with technology, I think our LGBTQI people do as well. Maybe more so, maybe not. It's a very individual thing. But I just wanted to make that point, really.
Really good point, really well made. Thank you very much, Andy. Lawrence, what's your thoughts on this?
So it was a comment that somebody had said earlier on, and it just made me think about the whole notion of how we, what did you say, question quietly or question nicely or kindly inquisitive. Thank you. And I think that is really valuable. I think it's the only way we can learn sometimes. I can remember a few years ago attending a conference about the aging LGBT plus community, and one of the stories that was told by an older woman was the constant coming out, even though she was in her 70s. And it was the idea that she was caring for her partner who was quite poorly, but every time she went to an appointment, it was always, what do I say? Is this my wife? Is this my partner? Is this my girlfriend? Or is this, do people assume that we're sisters? And quite often that's what was happening. People were assuming they were sisters. And I think it's acknowledging that sometimes you do have to ask, the relationship with somebody so that you can understand that why are they caring for them in a particular way, or what support they need. And I think that's something I would appreciate. And it's something I'm only 50, but as I get older, I'm thinking, okay, what if I don't get my needs met? What if I end up in a care home that doesn't feed me vegetarian food? What if I'm placed with lots of people that are homophobic? I'm not overly worried about these kind of things, but it's that kind of thing that I think, if you're not asked those questions, you're not able to articulate, or you don't feel comfortable articulating, and you don't have a clinician or or some kind of key worker or somebody that will ask those questions of you. It's really important to have that kind of, to encourage that kind of discussion now, I think, because we will have an aging population that will need that kind of support as we in the next few years. Much more so, I think, much more open, I think, than has been the case.
I think that's absolutely right, and also nicely moving on to sort of some of the healthcare aspects of this, because evidently this is sort of it's our bag in primary care, and you know it's actually not something that really occurred to me too much until you mentioned there about aging diverse populations, I suppose, and how we might incorporate that, and how systems might be set up to help sort of show allyship, not just when people are well and young and I suppose fired up, but later on when they might need different levels of care and different modes of understanding, maybe is a way.
Mhm. Yeah.
Join us in the next episode where we dive into this conversation further and consider what practices can do to show and action their inclusivity to the LGBTQIA+ community. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you at the next podcast.